as Tina was mentioning, I'm the founder and CEO of a startup called Rock Paper Robot, and we make kinetic and connected furniture. But you don't have to know what that is yet to follow along. A while ago, we closed a round of funding, and this involved drawing up various legal documents, one of which delineated the potential risk factors involved in the investment. It's basically an itemized list of every conceivable way I might fail. Because we're a tech furniture company, this document's panoply of reasons investors might not get their money back obviously includes everything from changes in ergonomic standards to raw material market fluctuations to war. Actually, it says war in the document. And then there's section 6.2. Our operations depend almost exclusively on the performance and continued service of Jessica Banks, our founder, sole shareholder, and CEO. The loss of her services would adversely affect our ability to effectively pursue our business strategy and would most likely result in the loss of your investment. We do not maintain key person life insurance on Ms. Banks. Now, this jargon didn't scare the investors away, but it fucking freaked me out, okay? So, and it's not even the life insurance part because I'd be dead. But I'm an inventor, and I make things that the patent office and that I believe never quite existed before, and things that other people will covet, hopefully, and use. I mean, don't be fooled by all this crap around us. It's really hard to come up with something and then make something that never existed. Yet my company relies on the fact that I do this continuously. And this was, up till that point, no one ever required me to invent things, or at least I'd never seen it in writing. So I called my lawyer. And I was like, was I covered if I got some kind of product block? Or what if I couldn't tirelessly generate culturally relevant output? And he mocked me. You mean like Bob Dylan? Which was a cogent point, except that war at least helped Bob Dylan. So that really didn't make me feel much better because I had no creative process, or at least I couldn't identify it as such. So basically, if this ball is a thought, this is what it feels like in my head. And I just kind of assumed that all I needed was a bucket. But now I felt really compelled to figure out if there was any possible way to guarantee the generation of novelty. So I researched. I read all the eureka stories about falling apples and soaring kites and self-devouring snakes, and watched tons of TED Talks of people indulgently romanticizing their creative processes. I went to Burning Man. all to find out how I came up with new stuff. And then I got it. So we rewind. When I was a junior in high school, don't do the math, I went blind over the course of 36 hours. Now, this was a physical and not a psychological blindness, so I wasn't aware of any incidents of trauma. At first, the doctors didn't know what it was. They didn't know if I was going to see again. They didn't know what caused it. And it turned out that somehow I had gotten severe corrosions on my corneas. I even started a minor epidemic. I was the first of 9 cases, even though I didn't know any of them, so it was unlikely that it was like a viral or bacterial thing. And after about a week, I started to see light shadows again, and then slowly my eyes healed to even better than my prior 20/20 vision. It's kind of like I got like a natural LASIK or something. I also got increased peripheral acuity. And as much as this might sound like a superpower, it gave me what I would be diagnosed with over a decade later in grad school, a kind of convergence dyslexia, which is a slight eye coordination problem. And this makes it hard for me to maintain focus at certain distances, often when I'm reading, but other times as well. And the result is my eyes get very tired. And sometimes I see things differently that don't actually exist, not like hallucinations, but things that look like they're reflected or floating or overlapped or covered in glass shards. So I make mistakes, kind of like the visual analog to mishearing lyrics of a song, right? So now my brain sorts it out in seconds, way quicker than a decade of singing Don's Early Light in the Star-Spangled Banner. But before that happens, I essentially experience the physiological equivalent of belief in something that doesn't physically exist. Okay, so here comes the part of the talk where I kind of start to lose my scientific footing, but bear with me just bear with me. So I believe my best creative sparks are the results of an empirical error. When it happens, it feels very different from like conjuring or imagining. And sure, I'm educationally primed to intellectually take advantage of this feature, and that's super important too. But my point is that this is not a heady cerebral process, but kind of an anticlimactically passive state. And that being said, it's cognitively and chemically indistinguishable from the functional truth that I usually assume my senses afford me. Fortunately for my investors, this means I'm a little hardwired or guaranteed to continually do this. But don't fret, it also means we can devise tactics to facilitate experiences. We can call the Muse, and we don't just have to wait for her. Now, thank you for waiting, so I will show you some of the things that I once saw wrong. So if you cross your eyes and look at me, maybe you can see the negative space in between the two me's. And this table comes out of that kind of concept. This is our signature piece. It's a levitating table, and we call it float. So it's actually a matrix of magnetized wooden cubes that levitate with respect to one another. Of course, wood can't really be magnetized. The cubes are actually hollow, and we embed repelling magnets in the pairs of adjacent faces. If you look closely, you can actually see the repelling cubes are held in equilibrium by a system of flexible steel cables. And these are cool because it keeps them from not only flying apart, but coming together. Because if magnets come together on their sides, then they'll end up connecting if they come too close. So it keeps them from moving more than half of the diameter of any magnet over the next one. And you can actually even put stuff on the table. So if you distribute the mass of objects over many cubes, then you can actually hold heavy objects and coffee table things like normal. And we do levitating shelves too. They levitate out from the wall, which is even more counterintuitive, I think. Even after we did it, I was like, no, it doesn't work. It was working, but it doesn't work. It's like, and then here's another table. This is a giant concrete diamond balancing on its point, except it's not concrete, it's not balancing. It's made of 41 pieces of corian, which is a plastic suspended from an internal structure. It's hanging, so we call it brag. And this is some of our newest stuff. This is Ollie, and it's a table that stores flat on the wall, and it can come down and out to any length. And then it can store flat back up on the wall. And then the whole surface can be customized, so you can constantly swap in and out whatever you want. And let's say you have a wallpaper on your wall, and you maybe upload a picture of the wallpaper. We can print slats, and so when your table's up on the wall, it can be camouflaged in. That's something. Or you have your kosher slats, or whatever, your mirrors, or I don't know what, game boards. Right after seeing, when we first came out with the table, right after seeing it, someone actually asked us, well, this is great, but when the table's up on the wall, what happens to the chairs? And we were like, we'll be right back. And so we came up with these chairs. And so these fold really quickly with the pull of a string. And those are the companion chairs. They're the only ergonomic chairs that I know of that are folding chairs. So after I do all this, and I hear you guys be like, oh, cool, and wow. And I sometimes, when I even watch people see what we make, and I wonder, maybe what happened to my eyes was contagious after all. No, I'm just kidding. That was my TED ending. Actually, I'm pretty sure what happened was that I fell asleep with one of those teenage acne face masks on. And it got in my eyes. I mean, it was before the internet happened, so I couldn't check it. And this product went off the shelves. And so I'm probably past the statute of limitations on that. But I think basically I just made a stupid mistake, and that to me is pretty cool. So thank you so much for listening.